Practical wisdom. Imagine you're standing at the edge of a vast library, its shelves stretching endlessly upward into shadows. You've spent years collecting knowledge, facts, theories, insights gleaming like polished coins in your mind. Yet tonight, as you prepare for rest, a curious question whispers itself into existence. What if the deepest wisdom isn't found in what you know, but in how gracefully you hold the weight of not knowing? Here lies one of philosophy's most gentle paradoxes. True practical wisdom seems to emerge not from the accumulation of certainties, but from developing an intimate friendship with uncertainty itself. The Stoics understood this strange alchemy, that the person who claims to know everything understands very little, while the one who embraces their limitations often navigates life with profound skill. On one hand, you might think practical wisdom requires vast knowledge, strategies for every situation, answers for every question, solutions mapped out like constellations in a clear night sky. You study, you prepare, you build frameworks for understanding the world's complexity. This feels sensible, even necessary. On the other hand, life has a way of presenting you with scenarios that no textbook anticipated. The conversation that takes an unexpected turn, the relationship that doesn't follow the patterns you learned, the career choice that feels right in your bones but wrong on paper. In these moments, your accumulated knowledge feels less like a compass and more like a collection of beautiful but irrelevant artifacts. The Stoics noticed something profound about this tension. Marcus Aurelius, writing in his personal journals, often returned to themes of uncertainty and acceptance. He didn't claim to have life figured out. Instead, he cultivated what we might call a wisdom of presence, the ability to meet each moment with clarity rather than preconception. You begin to see how this works in your own experience. Think of a time when you helped a friend through difficulty. Chances are, your most valuable contribution wasn't advice pulled from some mental database. It was your ability to listen deeply, to remain present with their pain, to respond to what was actually happening rather than what you thought should be happening. Consider how practical wisdom shows up in the small moments. You're having a disagreement with someone you care about. Your mind offers several strategies, techniques for winning arguments, ways to prove your point, conversational moves designed to establish dominance or control. But practical wisdom might whisper something different entirely. It might suggest pausing before responding, asking yourself not, how can I be right, but how can I be helpful? This shift doesn't come from knowledge about conflict resolution, though such knowledge might be useful. It comes from something deeper, a willingness to prioritize connection over being correct, understanding over being understood. The ancient Stoics called this kind of responsive presence spiritual exercise. Not spiritual in a religious sense necessarily, but in the sense of cultivating your deepest capacity for wisdom. They understood that practical wisdom isn't a thing you possess, but a way of being you practice. Like learning to play music, it requires not just understanding the notes, but developing the sensitivity to know when to pause, when to emphasize, when to let silence speak. You might notice how this wisdom operates differently than ordinary problem solving. When you're fixing a mechanical problem, more knowledge generally leads to better results. You learn how the system works, identify what's broken, apply the appropriate solution. The relationship between knowledge and success feels relatively linear, but human situations rarely offer such clear causation. The same approach that works beautifully with one person might create disaster with another. The strategy that saved your relationship last year might be exactly wrong for the challenge you're facing today. Practical wisdom learns to read these subtle differences not through rules, but through attention. This brings us to one of the most beautiful aspects of Stoic thinking, the recognition that wisdom often means acting with incomplete information while remaining fully committed to doing your best. You make decisions knowing they might be wrong. You offer help knowing it might not be what's needed. You love people knowing they might leave. There's something both humbling and liberating in this approach. Humbling because it asks you to release the fantasy of control, the illusion that enough preparation can eliminate uncertainty. Liberating because it frees you from the exhausting requirement to know everything before you act. The Stoics understood that practical wisdom develops through practice, not perfection. Each day offers countless small opportunities to choose presence over preconception, curiosity over certainty, the way you respond to unexpected traffic, how you handle a colleague's criticism, whether you can remain open when someone disagrees with your most cherished beliefs. In these moments, practical wisdom might sound less like, I know what to do, and more like, I'm willing to discover what this situation needs. It's the difference between imposing your understanding on the world and allowing your understanding to be shaped by genuine encounter with what's actually happening. As you prepare for sleep tonight, you might consider how this shift in perspective affects your relationship with tomorrow's uncertainties. Rather than approaching them as problems requiring solutions, what if you met them as invitations to practice wisdom? Each unknown situation becomes not a test of your knowledge, but an opportunity to develop your capacity for presence. The deepest Stoic insight might be this. Practical wisdom isn't about having the right answers, but about becoming the kind of person who can hold questions with grace. Someone who can act decisively while remaining humble about outcomes. Someone who plans thoughtfully but holds those plans lightly. This doesn't mean becoming passive or indifferent. The Stoics were remarkably active in their communities, taking on leadership roles and engaging fully with life's challenges. But they did so with what Epictetus called the discipline of desire, wanting what happens, finding wisdom in whatever circumstances arise. You begin to sense how this philosophy might transform your experience of daily life. Challenges become less threatening when you're not required to solve them perfectly. Relationships become less burdensome when you're not responsible for controlling their outcomes. Work becomes less stressful when your worth isn't tied to predicting and preventing every possible difficulty. It's not about solving the paradox of practical wisdom, how we can be both prepared and spontaneous, both committed and flexible. It's about noticing how wisdom emerges naturally when we stop trying so hard to manufacture it, when we trust our capacity to respond appropriately to whatever life offers.